Good day to you one and all. It is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. So today is the moment. It's the moment you've all been waiting for, and especially myself, actually. This is the long-form interview that I've promised with Rick Beato, music genius, market leader for this kind of analysis stuff. And I think it might be quite an unusual interview because most people are interviewed by Rick, and I was definitely asking him about his life and experiences and his views on the music trade and stuff. You'll notice in the first part of it that I was a little bit nervous. There's a weird energy from me, but he's a calming influence, and we got there in the end. So I'd love it if you could use the comment section to let me know what your favourite bit is or was, and if you like this kind of long form stuff, then I'm going to do more of it, as I mentioned in that episode last week. Justin Hawkins Rides Again with Rick Beato. Enjoy.
How's it going? Good to meet you.
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Not too bad, just hanging out.
Yeah. I'm really pleased that you agreed to do this, by the way. It's amazing.
It's my pleasure.
You are the market leader of anything related to music discussion. People talk about you all over the place.
Well,
how does it feel? Because you've become synonymous.
Hey, I don't know. I try not to think about it. I just keep working.
Do you find that you're turning down the types of work that you might have done in the past? That like, do you turn down session guitaring gigs or?
The only thing I do is YouTube now.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't produced a record since 2016. Since I started my channel in 2016, and I get asked to do a lot of things like that, but. People ask me to mix records, produce records and everything, but I don't have any time. I put out 3 videos a week. So, you know, well, you put out a video every day. So
yeah, but my videos are a bit different to yours. I think I more or less waffle for 20 minutes. So it's manageable. I'm hoping that, if I can get somebody to help me around the house, I'll be able to still do creative stuff and, try and keep doing the other kinds of work. But it seems like, when you have your ear and on a thrice weekly basis, you're demonstrating your ear.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a shop window. You must get so many inquiries. And one of the questions I was going to ask you was, what criteria would a band or an artist have to meet for you to consider not doing YouTube for a couple of days or for a couple of weeks, maybe?
Nothing. There's nothing that would ever bring me back to producing again. And this is interesting. So I interviewed Billy Corgan yesterday, and I was at the studio. I went up to Nashville where he's working, and I was talking to his engineer that he's been working with for years, Howard, and we were talking about this topic, and I said that I love recording. I love tracking of the instruments and the production part, but vocals drive me nuts. I hate vocal tracking, and that's pretty much the most important thing. But I love I love getting sounds and that part of production. But it's the sitting for vocal takes.
What is it about vocal takes that puts you off then? Is it because as an instrument?
Because I don't work with singers as good as you, Justin. That's why. No, seriously.
Well, I mean, obviously this is the truth, larynx. It's always consistent. It's like plugging an amp in. You always know what you're going to get. But I suppose for a lesser vocalist, and let's face it, most vocalists are lesser vocalists, it would be an inconsistent sound source, wouldn't it? And you're looking for like moments of magic, and it's not even necessarily moments that reflect the overall character of a singer's general sort of average performance. You're looking for extraordinary things in a lead vocal, and is it because it's painstaking that you find it?
Painstaking comping vocals, yeah. It doesn't matter how you do it. Back when I first started and it was on tape, you'd have vocal comp sheets, where he's like, oh, this is a good line here, this is a good line here, it's on this track, the old days. Then you'd comp it from.
And how many takes would it be comped from, do you think?
Depends on the singer. Sometimes 8 takes or so. Sometimes It depends. If it was a great singer, maybe we do 3 or 4 takes and we punch in on the best one, and then and keep kind of refining it. It really depends. But now with then once it got to Pro Tools in 2000, then it's just like, then you just keep or Logic, whatever you use. You just keep the tracks and then going through it looking for the right takes, or it's just a pain. Even if you take notes and everything, it's just so tedious, you know?
Yeah, I think it's when I record my own vocals, I feel like I don't always trust my own ear, because it's like you feel like you've got something and you go back and it's flat, sharp, or just horrible in some other way. And when we do Darkness records, I think I do 4 complete passes, and we comp from that. And if there's anything missing, I'll do an additional one focusing on the bits that aren't there. And even that's tedious, you know.
Right.
When you're getting
it's
into
tedious,
8,
and it's your vocal, right? And you want it to be as good as possible, but you know what I mean.
we've tried a lot of different things. Like when we were trying to sort of do, we always try and get a live backing track because we don't use clicks or anything like that. So it's kind of like the whole, you know, the human fluidity of the tempo and everything has to feel good. And I used to sing along with the band when they're putting the tracks down, but I found that everybody in the band sort of peaks at a different take, you know. So I might get my best stuff on like the 3rd or 4th, and then I'm really tired by the time we get a good. I'm just saying this as for an example, bass take, and that not to you know, or drums or whatever, you know.
And then there's a thing of you know, having the energy in the room of, if you're singing, then you have to worry about having your vocal or your guitar in the drum room mics and things like that, because you want to be close enough so that there's a vibe, yet you don't want your stuff bleeding in, because if you do a take and you're in the, you know, and you're just kind of in the room mics, but then you compress the room mic, it's like, you can hear the guitar scratching away or whatever, and it's, you know, it's those kind of things are you know,
but they're charming, aren't they? When you get that sort of bleed and stuff, isn't it? It's things that people listen out for. If a discerning listener would get a kick out of hearing something like that, I think.
Absolutely, unless you have a singer that sings different melodies or something than the one that they do. If they don't have the melody worked out and they're singing one thing, it's like, oh, I want to change it, and then you're kind of like, I'm hearing something, and it's like, oh shoot, it's in the room.
I hope by take 8 there's some sort of
hopefully there's
consistency
the melody
in the
kind of
melody,
worked out, right? Yeah. So yeah, I find that that's the only thing. I would probably come back to producing. I mean, I still have a full functioning studio here with my 60 guitar amps and 10 drum sets, and you know, and every kind of guitar imaginable. I've never gotten rid of anything.
Yeah, it's hard to do that though, isn't it?
It is,
because those are the things you regret. Those are the only things you regret, really. You never regret a purchase, I don't think.
No.
But when you lose something and you can't hold it, you know.
I go into my control room and I'll look at something like I have EMI compressor, you know, the stereo bus compressor, and or drum compressor, whatever you'd use it for. But you know, they're not inexpensive. These are great things, and when I just see it sitting there unused, it's like, man, I haven't turned that on in 2 years. I mean, it's on, but I haven't used it on drum room mics in 2 years, and it was just for one video for 5 minutes, you know.
But it's not like clothes though, because if I had like an item of clothing that I haven't worn for 2 years, it's probably time to let it go.
Right.
But there's guitars that I haven't touched for 2 years, and it's definitely they must never leave me.
Do you dust them off, or are they in the case?
No, I have my butler do that, obviously.
I just leave all mine up here, and I know which ones I haven't played in a while, and I feel bad about it.
For them.
I feel bad for them. It's like, man, it's just sitting there alone. Just like when I haven't opened a piece of software, I say it's collecting digital dust. I know I have that plugin somewhere, but I haven't opened it. I don't even know if it works.
Yeah. And then when you do, the license has expired, and then you just wish you hadn't opened it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know that feeling. So I didn't know how we were going to do this. I don't know if it's going to be like a chat or some sort of profile on you. I've got some prompts and things that we could talk about. I mean, I wanted to ask you how you got into music in the first place, and go back to the early days if you're up for doing stuff like that.
Sure, anything.
Cool. Amazing. So, right. So how do you arrive at being this actualized individual who can listen to a song and pick out which bits of a chord is augmented or suspended or whatever the other expressions are. I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I don't have a true sort of vocabulary when it comes to.
But Justin, even your Justin Hawkins rides again is really a sophisticated lick, right? It's like over F sharp half diminished to B7 to E minor. I mean, when I hear that, I'm like
F sharp half diminished. What's that then? Let's have a look here. So this is what that one there is that.
Yeah. Da, 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 da. Da, da. Then you do your 2 B7s chord.
Yeah, I do. That's
and then
true.
You do your high one with F sharp on the top.
And then I go for a 9 or a minor 7.
E minor 7. That's right.
So this first chord, I never knew what that was actually.
Yeah.
I knew that it was a chord which had 4 bits in it because, yeah.
But yeah, that.
See, that's worth the admission alone. You playing that.
Is really a sophisticated. I mean, it's a minor 2/5 in the key of E minor. There, that's when I first heard your channel right at the beginning, and I heard you do that as your theme, I thought, wow, that's cool,
amazing. Because I got comments ranging from why to please stop, and now I'm getting wow from the actual man who understands it.
That's really when I heard that, I said, wow, okay. I know that you, from the darkness, I know that you have a great ear for melody, and that you probably just improvised your theme in 5 minutes before your first video, right?
The original theme I had was literally, I was just playing it and saying it as it occurred to me, and my producer was filming it at the time, as luck would have it. And then this one was, it's an extract of another composition that will probably never see the light of day, but. I just I like my thing, and from a rudimentary perspective, what I like about the fancy chord at the beginning. What was it called again?
F sharp half diminished, F sharp minor 7 flat 5.
Why is it half diminished?
Well, fully diminished would be this. So this is half diminished. That's fully diminished.
So which note is different? It's that, isn't it? Yeah, I see.
Right, the fully diminished is your B7 chord, basically.
Right.
B7 flat 9.
So I'll tell you how I arrived at that.
Yep.
Every note in the chord has an interval of 3 semitones between it. Uh-huh. So it means that you can transpose it free up, and whatever position you do it on at the neck, it's going to sound the same. It reminds me a little bit of some Juan Martin flamenco playing that I used to. I mean, I'm a big Juan Martin enthusiast anyway, because I love all of his stuff that's inspired by Picasso portraits and stuff like that, and even the sort of things that've got synth behind it. But he does this one phrase in La Luna Negra. It's something like, and then when I listen to what the root is, it's just staying there, and I realised that chord is probably the same as the one I'm.
So those diminished chords like that, they just keep reordering themselves with the same 4 notes.
Right. Yeah, that's what I love about it. I think it's 4 instead of 3. It's a quadrad instead of a triad or whatever. If that's.
It's just a 7th chord, but it's a diminished 7th chord. But it's
all right. Don't take all the shine off it. Yeah. Oh, amazing.
But when I hear that though, I hear that's. I just hear that change. That's that's a 2/5 in a minor key.
Yeah, the second bit is like a B7, isn't it? By sort of slide up to it. Yeah.
Right.
So what I was going to ask you was, when you hear that chord, when you heard that chord and you said "wow," which is, I'm so pleased that you're flattering me in that way, But when you heard that chord, was it necessary for you to have an instrument in your hand to be able to sort of decipher it, or is
no? I mean, I know what the I know what the intervals are and things like that. So,
And how do you arrive at that then? Is that something as simple as recognizing the relationship between different frequencies, or is it a familiarity that comes from music love and you know, listening to stuff?
okay, I'll put it this way: when you hear an E minor chord, you know it's an E minor chord,
I
right?
think I do, yeah.
You know a D chord when you hear it. You don't even have to pick up your guitar. You know when somebody's playing a D chord.
Usually, yeah. It sort of twangs in a certain way, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So that's how. So I call it a vocabulary of recognized sounds. Now, I started as an ear player, like everybody. I picked up the guitar when I was in 8th grade. I was 14. I broke my ankle summer of 8th grade, and I had nothing to do for 13 weeks. The first week of the summer, I broke my ankle. I'm sitting on the couch in 1976, and there's this cheap $1 guitar my brother had gotten sitting in the corner. I was like, well, and I had already played the cello and the bass, so I could already play things because I started on cello when I was 9, and so I was like, oh, I'll just learn this guitar. It was a Mel Bay chord book, so I started learning chords, and then I just started figuring out songs that, you know, the stuff that was going on then, like Boston's first record and Night at the Opera had come out, you know, the year before, and Frampton Comes Alive was huge, and, you know, I mean, this is the mid '70s, and so I'm learning Stairway to Heaven, learning Freebird, learning everything. Then I started learning Beatles songs, and by the time I got through the summertime, I went back to school. I could play, you know, 100 songs, something like that.
And your ankle had healed.
And my ankle had healed, and I was, and then one of my buddies showed me the pentatonic scale and taught me, well, I could figure out, I've learned Hey Joe, Jimmy's solo on that, and then I started playing lead, and I just loved it. I never stopped playing ever since then.
So do you think the pentatonic scale is something that opened a doorway for you and made you sort of feel like...
Yes.
Is that when something clicked and then you kind of went, ah...
Yeah, I just loved playing along with records. That was the most fun thing. I still like doing that, but
pentatonic scale is a thing that lets you do that. You know,
that's right.
If you've got that one down, you can more or less play along to anything that's from the rock and pop realm of the last 40 years, most probably. With some, you know, is it the harmonic minor when you need a little bit of sauciness and a little bit of extra sophistication?
That's right. Yeah. So that was the thing that really kept me playing, I think, was, you know, learning guitar solos and stuff like that. That's when I really became obsessed with the guitar. But just being able to play songs for people was really cool. And then I started to learn. My dad gave me a jazz guitar record when I was in 10th grade, Joe Pass record, and my dad was not a musician, but he really knew great jazz guitar, and so my dad's like, if you ever learn to play guitar like this, my parents were blue collar workers. My mom worked in a can factory. My dad worked for the railroad. And he's like, if you ever learn to play guitar like this, you've accomplished something. It's like, what? And I let the record sit there for about 3 months. And one day I opened it up and I started listening to it. It's all this just solo jazz guitar, improvised stuff. And I got to about the 4th song. I was like, I think I could figure this out. So I started figuring it out. It's this song, All the Things You Are. And it's got all these, you know, tons of chords and things and melody notes in between. And my dad comes home from work and I was like, check this out. And I put on the record and I started playing along with it. He's like, how'd you figure that out? I said, just listen to it. And he never would react to anything. Like he never would be impressed. That's
old school dadding though, isn't it?
Old school dad. He was born in 1919. My parents were 2 generations older than me. And, but I knew that he was impressed. I could tell that it's like, wow.
But you look at when you have a father that doesn't give you the affirmations that I think the current sort of young generation gets just for doing anything, farting even, you know, like back then, you're looking for a tell. You're looking for some sort of twitch that belies the pride, aren't you?
That's right. That's right. So that was kind of a big thing. I was like, wow, I can't believe Dad's actually impressed. I mean, he didn't let on, but I knew that he was impressed.
I bet he was telling other people at the railroad.
You know what, Justin? When I was in 4th grade, my dad would take me. He drove 45 minutes to this place that he worked. So he was near the end of his career because he retired in 1979 or so. But this is like So I'm in fourth grade. So he's like, he took me to this public golf course. Now I'm from a family of 7, but my dad, when I was 10 years old, thought, because I drove my mom nuts in the summertime. So he's like, I'm going to take him to this golf course and drop him off every day and have him play 2 rounds of golf. And my dad was like, when you get up there, if there's somebody in a twosome or threesome, say, hey, can I play along with you? And I'm a little kid. They gave me $5 to eat lunch. And he goes, then go into the clubhouse, eat lunch, and then go out and play again. So I would go up these and play with these golf with these strangers, guys smoking and drinking and everything. And, guys that fought in World War II and listening to the stories, and I'd be hacking away. And, but every day my dad would drive me to his office. He had this little building, and he'd get on the phone and yell at people. And I loved it, because I was thinking, like, he doesn't just yell at me, he yells at everybody. This is awesome.
That's just his base level volume of communication. Just yelling.
That's right. And I would just laugh, and he would get off the phone. He'd kind of look at me and he'd smile, because, it's like, you yell at everybody. This is great.
I think that's true about kids, though. Like, if you can show your child what you do when you're at work, I think, and then they feel like part of it, and they understand you, don't they? I'm
the only one, Justin, that ever did that too, out of my 6 siblings. So
yeah, fantastic. Well, what was I going to ask you? So your father gave you the jazz record.
Yeah.
When he realised that you'd mastered it and was trying to conceal his pride, did he then sort of drip feed you more complicated stuff to try and learn, or was he standoffish and letting you kind of?
No. So he would buy records all the time. He had tons of records, and this record is so complicated. There's almost nothing that's any more complicated than this. So I got it. I met a guy then that lived 2 blocks away from me that owned a music store. I would mow his lawn. I was doing odd jobs for people and stuff. I worked at a grocery store. And this guy and I went in to get paid and mowed this guy's lawn. And he had all these guitars. I was like, wow, you got all these guitars? He's like, yeah, I own a music store. And he said, do you play guitar? I said, yeah. So he said, play me something. I started playing. He said, you should definitely come take lessons. Come to the music store. So I was like, okay. And they taught jazz guitar at these things. So I'm in 10th grade at the time. And then I had a teacher that told me what these chords were that I had learned by ear. So then I started learning the names of everything, and he taught me modes and stuff like that. But I already could figure out, I was already playing in bands and stuff and could figure out pretty much.
But I suppose, did he give you like the glossary and the vocabulary of what you understood by ear anyway?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's a minor 7th chord. That's a half diminished chord. This is when I learned these things. I mean, it was like 1978.
Yeah,
first lesson. So
for me, we're actually pretty similar, I think, because I started when I was 14, playing along to records. I had some lessons, but then I think the prevailing method for me was listening to stuff, and then I was it was creeping into the things that I would ad lib, and it was actually starting to piss my teacher off, because I was ignoring plectrum technique and I was trying to teach myself a hybrid thing with fingers and plectrum, and he hated it. It's like, what have I told you about plectrums? And and I was like, but the sound, Woody. And I mean, we parted on good terms after about a year. He said to me, you should just go and join a band. With a sort of air of resignation.
Back then you sang, right? You always sang, didn't you?
No, I didn't actually. I was just a guitar player. I just wanted to be a guitarist, really.
When did you realize you had a great voice?
That realization is still sinking in, I'll be honest with you, Rick. It's not, I have imposter syndrome to a preposterous degree. And I feel just, if I'm holding a guitar, and I know I'm not the greatest guitar player, but I know how to do stuff on it, and I can get by, And even if I play a bum note, I always say that a bum note played with enough confidence is not a bum note at all. Far from it. It's the correct note.
That's right. The confidence is there are no wrong notes if you play them confidently.
Yeah, I mean, we had a singer before in the 90s, and then we decided to try and gamble and find someone more that we thought was more of a star or whatever. And we were auditioning people for 2 or 3 years. I was one of the people that auditioned, but because of the range and the intensity of the screaming that was occurring over music that was kind of like probably like a slightly more proggy Radiohead type thing, it was not a good fit. And it was only when we sort of decided to do something that was built around me doing that stuff that it started to click really and work for us. But I fell backwards into singing. I was a guitar player.
Well, it's definitely different for being, if you're a singer, because I'm not a singer, and anytime that I sing in my videos, it's I don't even care anymore. But I'll sing to demonstrate something, but I'm such a terribly bad singer. Although when I would produce, I could do harmonies, and it would frustrate me if I worked with people that couldn't come up with if it's not that they can't come up with harmonies. If I would sing a harmony part to them that they couldn't even sing it, and that just it blew my mind. I've worked with singers of some well-known singers that couldn't sing harmonies.
I'm hearing a lot of things in what you're saying that suggests to me that it's vocalists that have caused this transition and this pivot. It's just vocalists, isn't it? And it's not even the ego part of it, by the sounds of it. It's ability and the lack thereof, I think.
Yeah, so I had my old assistant engineer brought a band in right when I started my YouTube channel. I'm doing it full time, and he had this singer in the ISO booth, which was 15 feet from me here, and I could hear him sing the same line over and over and over, and it was starting to bleed in. It was bleeding in on my microphone here as I'm making the video, and I just went in. I was like, he's got it. I just he sang the same way 100 times, and my assistant Ken was laughing so hard that he's like, it's like you always are, and I just couldn't hear him sing the same line 50 times, and it's just like, this is why I hate producing right there. So, occasionally, Justin, you would work with someone that could sing, 4 takes, and then you can comp a vocal. That's a rare thing,
Yeah. I think there's also there's definitely bits that, of course, I'm not talking about myself here in this instance, but sometimes there's just a phrase, and you can get 4 solid takes of a whole song, and there might just be one word that is just sticky. And try as you might, and it becomes a mental, psychological block, And then you have to sort of send whoever it might be. For example, it might be Jason Hawkins from Lowestoft, whatever, but whoever it might be, and you have to send them off for a walk, go and have a cigarette, do something different, get yourself out of the funk that you're in. And it's that muscle memory thing. Is like if you get it wrong 20 times, you're probably going to get it wrong another 20 times.
Yeah. Yeah, some people get these mental blocks. I did a thing with Desmond Child years ago,
who I love.
15 years ago. I did a song. It was a VH1 thing with Vince Neil. Okay, so Desmond was really particular about this one vocal line, and I'm running Pro Tools and stuff, and I'm producing the track with Desmond, and Vince couldn't get this line, and Desmond kept singing it to him, and then I would sing it to him and everything, and it was being filmed, and eventually I was like, Desmond, he's never going to get this, and it doesn't matter. The melody he's singing is okay, and Desmond would not, to his credit, he would not move on from it.
So he's such an exacting composer that this nuanced line that he was expecting
it
Vince
was
Neil
like 3 notes, and just Vince could not hear it. And Desmond and Vince said, what did he say? You probably, God, I hate this. And Desmond said, not as much as we do, or something like that. That definitely didn't help him get the line, though.
I heard a story about that from it was Mutt Lange. I had dinner with Mutt Lange once, and he was talking about, I've been waiting for a girl like you. That incredible vocal on that. He said that took 100 years, and, and he was saying he said it was really frustrating. And then, and this is the most disappointing part of that story. they got that vocal and they achieved that, the sensual kind of, it's a really seductive performance, isn't it? It's incredible bit of singing. And the way he did that was like, Mark Langer had a friend who was like a model, and a lovely looking model lady. And then so he brought the model lady in and perched her on this sort of window from the control room to the singing room. And then he was so inspired by the glimmering sight of this beautiful woman that he sang in that way, which to me, the song that I love, and I love listening to it mainly because of that vocal, suddenly it was like, oh, that's just really creepy. Yeah, I wish I didn't know that, It really spoilt it for me, But but I think what it speaks to is like the psychological barriers that that build up if you get like repeated missteps in takes. It's a killer, and then you need a vision of disarming beauty.
It's once you get something locked in your head, once a singer would get something locked in their head that's wrong from, a lot of times, so I would just move on from it and try and come back to it later, because they have to, I come back to it a couple days later and just try and punch that one spot. Because you just keep the more they do it incorrectly, you just keep reinforcing it. Or I would try to find if there was something that was as good as it, but was different, to kind of get their mind away from it. But yeah, I just found vocals tedious. And
did you ever try one like because I've noticed that if I'm having difficulty playing either a guitar part or singing a thing when I'm playing the guitar part, one element of that suffers if it's a syncopated vocal and guitar thing, and it's challenging. The way I get around that is to add a third element. And then those two kind of, you instinctively do it. So I wonder if like when you have that repeat failure, a distraction technique of some sort, like you can run in there and drop something on his foot or punch him in the you know what I mean. I wonder if something like that would help.
I had never tried that, but and luckily I will never have to try that again. But I do miss I miss putting together songs. That's one of the most fun things, Do
you mean compositionally or as a producer?
Everything. I love tracking drums. I love every part of producing a song to the mixing. I love
except dealing with vocalists.
Yeah, but I mean, once the vocals are done, then placing them in the mix and everything, and that and putting the harmony. Once the lead vocal's done, harmony parts are fun to do. So it's really just.
What about if I produced an instrumental record with just some dramatic monologues?
Perfect. That sounds great. I'd love to do that.
That sounds good.
But I really love recording though, and just being in a studio yesterday up in Nashville with Billy and having everything set up, and just they're working on a new Smashing Pumpkins record, and I met Jimmy Chamberlain, who I'm a huge fan of his drumming, and it's fun. I love being in studios, man. It's there's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you're a producer, because the thing that I think you have to deal with when you pivot into this kind of existence is the trolls. You're obliged to sort of interact to a degree, because I mean, this is what you're doing. You're connecting with your audience in a totally different way. You're much more visual. As a producer, a lot of the time people are going to love your work and they won't even be aware that it's you that's done it. Whereas here, you're the face, front and center.
Yeah, so I never let anyone take my picture that I produced, nor did I let anyone ever film me in the studio. So there are literally no pictures with any person I've ever worked with. Mm-hmm. I hated being on, I never wanted to be on camera. I never wanted my picture on the internet. There's almost no pictures of me on the internet before I started my YouTube channel in 2016. So, it's funny that I do this now, but as far as trolls and everything, I mean, I don't even get to the comments section at a certain time. I've got over 1,000 videos, and the ones I did 3 years ago get thousands of views a day, and there's comments on those that I haven't been back to the videos in 3 years, and so
Did you ever get dragged into like a
never
slanging match or anything like that?
No, I don't. Most of the comments, I'll read the comments for the first 30 minutes or first hour when I put out the video to make sure that there's no dropouts or anything like that in it. Because occasionally I've had uploads where something goes wrong or something is out of sync, and I've pulled videos down and put them back, and corrected it and put them back up, or just re-upload it. But that's it. But I almost never comment on a video.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember the last time I commented in the comments section. And it's just, there's, my videos get 500,000 views is like an average video.
Views.
Which is incredible. It's amazing. So,
yeah, I mean, if a video does 200,000 views, that's bad, right? It's not bad. I mean,
I'd be thrilled, but
it's stupid. I don't even think of that, because I make videos on things that I like, that it's topics that I'm interested in. Some of which I know that people aren't going to click on. I know that, but it doesn't matter. I don't ever make videos based on what people are going to click on or anything.
Have you ever made a video like explaining why a song is great, and then, because I think what you do is like you take an objectively great song and you use your ear and your musicality to understand what triggers the greatness, as it were. But obviously, great is
subjective.
It's definitely subjective. So, have you ever tried to analyze what is considered widely to be an objectively great song when your subjective view of it is that it's not great?
Yeah. So okay. Well, I didn't mean to interrupt, Justin. So my What Makes a Song Great series has a question mark at the end of it, right? It's a question. It's not my endorsement of the song. It's what makes people think that this song is great. So it's really not every song that I've analyzed I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking for greatness in it, though.
Yeah, I look for the things that why it works for people. What makes people come back to it over and over and over again, and so I'm looking for those things.
So, but have you ever been completely stumped and just listened to something and thought, I do not understand what it is that makes this a cultural?
Yeah, when I make videos of the top 10 songs on Spotify,
How is that in there? I mean, what do you think about Polyphia? Because I've done a couple of videos on them, and when I listen to it, I mean, obviously it's astounding. The playing is so impressive, and it's just...
Okay, so I'm just going to say this. So Tim is going to be here tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
He's going to be in my studio tomorrow. So so I know Tim, and I know I've had the band in here before, and
Which one is Tim, by the way? Which one is he? The one with the cool haircut, kind of.
Yes, with neck tattoo and
yeah.
So I've been a really big champion of the progressive metal things, because that's really the movement over the last since I started my channel, that is the kind of the one guitar movement that is going on. And when there was no guitar in popular music, really, when I say popular music, I mean on the top of the charts,
yeah, I'd say 1 to 15, there is no guitars.
There's no guitar, right? So I champion on my channel guitar music. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, I do videos on everything. I do drum videos, bass videos, keyboard videos, and all different topics, all different genres. But I always am championing guitar players and guitar movements. And the progressive metal movement, which is interesting because Polyphia now, a lot of their stuff on their new record is not really metal. It has a modern drum tones.
I think it's like what's that music called? Trap? Is it?
Yeah, it's like trap. Like some of it has the trap drum beats, you know, but they're real drums, but with sounds, you know, replace kick drum that'll have like an 808 kick sound and stuff like that. So, but now Tim is doing stuff that is almost, some of the stuff is almost Spanish sounding, and he has these elements of
I love Spanish sounding stuff.
Yeah, and flamenco music, and
flamenco is among my favorite. It's about time that was meshed with the rock and metal scene.
Right, with rock. And so there, you know, I support any kind of guitar thing that's out there. And so that's kind of my, I devote time on my channel to doing that because it's important to me that people keep playing instruments like
absolutely. I mean, I loved covering Polyphia as well because, you know, just because I don't understand how they've arrived at these compositions doesn't mean that I think it's terrible. I actually enjoy listening to it, but what I find is that nearly every time I cover them, it's just a huge moment for my channel. It's like everybody comes and wants to see what I've got to say about Polyphia, and I'm just lost. All I can accurately discuss is their knitwear. You know what I mean? I have no idea how they do it, but I still, it's one of those things where perhaps ours is not to ponder, and I do enjoy just the overall vibe of it. But when I'm trying to analyze it, I just feel,
well, it's funny because every one of the guys, like Tosin Abasi is a really dear friend of mine from Animals as Leaders. And, you know, Tosin, I mean, I don't play guitar in the style of any of those guys, or Aaron Marshall from the band Intervals. I mean, I know all the progressive metal guys, and they all have their own styles, and it's nothing that I don't play guitar like that, but I don't play guitar like Al Di Meola either. And I love Al's playing, and I don't play guitar like Alan Holdsworth, and I don't play guitar like Jimmy Page, and I love all their playing. So,
but I suppose one of the things I'm getting at though is like within a certain section of media, and i.e. how people consume art and music, Polyphia is just nailing it. You know, everybody on YouTube is watching it, and they're watching me react to it, which is astounding because I've got nothing to say, and I just got nothing accurate to say about it. But when you do like a series like What Makes This Song Great, you've got to be talking about hits, haven't you? Because it's, you know, for it to work as a sort of clickbaity title, you're going to need to talk about things that have crossed over culturally and everybody's aware of. So it's usually going to be radio hits, most probably, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I've done. I did a song by Pliny in my What Makes This Song Great series. I did a Polyphia song. I've done Periphery, and then.
How did you get on with Polyphia? When you did the What Makes It Great, are you able to? I mean, of course you're able to do it. I mean, but what was the conclusion? Is it because it's? Oh,
I love it's just a completely different way, new modern way of playing the guitar, and I'm just fascinated by it. So it's funny because I've sat here with Tim many times, and we've done many videos together, and I see him play the stuff. But it always amazes me how they arrive at this style. You know what I mean? Just from me, I'm a rock and roller, old time guy that learned in the 70s and grew up with 70s, 60s, and 70s rock. And I love Keith Richards, and I love my Mick Jagger painting is there, and my John Lennon painting is there, and but I made my career producing a lot of new metal music in the early 2000s because that's what was popular. So I produced mainly metal bands. So that is, so, you know, contemporary music that's metal based is kind of in my wheelhouse as well. Yeah, but this is so different. What these guys are doing is even so different than that, you know?
I was going to ask you about the technique of it? Are they actually slap? It sounds like they're slapping like a.
They're doing some slapping. They do slapping and tapping. They do.
It's the old slap and tap 1-2 punch.
Slap and tap, and then they do mute. They do these weird palm muting things, and Tosin does thumping. It's a
literally punching the guitar like this.
He does it with his thumb, and he does this selective picking, this other thing that these guys do. That it's so interesting how they come up with these, and that's a lot of left hand, occasional right hand picks, but a lot of left hand hammer-ons from nowhere and stuff. And I just love this stuff, man.
So some of it must arrive from, hitting a biscuit tin or whatever it is, taking that percussive element. Yeah, I suppose it is.
It's the acoustic guys too
I know who you're talking about. That guy who was on during COVID. He was in multi-story car parks doing Kashmir. That guy.
Oh, Nathaniel Murphy.
Is that who it is? Okay.
Oh yeah, Nathaniel's amazing. He's English. He lives in I just saw him 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I thought I recognized the multi-story car park actually.
Yes, he's unbelievable. There's a lot of these guys are just that can do the tapping and play on acoustic and come up with these solo guitar arrangements. It's just genius. It's so original and I think that the ability of people to get on YouTube and learn from YouTube is amazing, because there's so much stuff that these guys have learned over the last, so many young players have learned over the last, when YouTube's been around since 2006, whatever that is, 16 years or so.
I know that's 16 years. That's when I got sober.
Okay, so there you go. So yeah, that's, it's really catapulted people's abilities into the stratosphere and learning how to, playing guitar in new ways.
But I suppose what I've encountered with Polyphia is just to not be able to express what I love about it, because I haven't been able to wrap my head around it. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever found yourself completely out of your depth with something that's beyond your ability to understand?
I don't know. I pretty much can understand most things. I don't mean that.
I was hoping you'd say that.
I was a college music professor in my 20s, and to get there, I have a master's degree in jazz studies, and my undergrad degree is in classical bass, and I was, but I was a player that learned to play rock by ear, and then learned the other stuff later on after I had developed that. But
I think that's the right way round.
Yeah, go learn by ear and then learn what the names of what is.
Some people think that that's a good way to develop bad habits that are difficult to undo, but I think it enables the passion to be the thing that's the motivating.
That's right.
Momentous force, and then you just chase it and educate yourself along the way. Find out. You become a cartographer then, don't you? Because you're discovering new things with your fingers and your ears, and work out how to write it down, I suppose.
Yeah, and the thing now, because anybody can turn on YouTube and learn anything, they don't have to use their ears, and they have these slow downers and all these things to aid. We never had any of that stuff. I mean, just had the
slow downer. You mean they film it and then?
No, they slowed it. Like YouTube, you can slow the video down to half speed. I don't know if you even knew that. Yeah, you can slow down maybe to quarter speed now. YouTube, you can slow down. It's unbelievable. You can watch the people play in the same pitch, yet at a quarter the speed or half the speed at least, and it enables people to see how there's certain players. I can watch Alan Holdsworth play something, but I could never play it. Even though I know the notes that he's playing, but to play him. Some of the stuff. It's like I did a video, where I did the top 20 guitar solos of all time. And one of the solos I picked was Ice Cream Man by Van Halen. So now Ice Cream Man, the solo to that, right? You probably can play that, Justin, right?
Yeah, give me a second. What key's it in?
So I start, I did this probably 3 years ago. I'm 60 now, 57. I can't do those stretch. I can't stretch like Eddie does. So Eddie would turn his guitar up this way and play like this when it came to that part. Anytime you see Van Halen live, that's when they play that song, he'd turn his guitar up like that because that's the only way to reach it, even though Eddie had a really big stretch. So I called, so I couldn't do it. And I was like, oh, who can I get to do this? So I called Phil X, who's one of my dear friends. I was like, Phil, can you do this? Oh, I need to practice that. And he's like, call Dweezil. Dweezil can do it, I'm sure. So I called Dweezil, Zappa up, and Dweezil's like, no, I'd have to practice that. And I was like, I'll just use a video of Eddie doing it. So yeah. I think that's what that's what it was. But I mean, I know the notes, but playing them like that, I just can't, I can't stretch like that. I know exactly what he's playing, but I just can't pull it off anymore. I used to be able to, but I can't. I don't have the flexibility in my hand anymore to do it.
Yeah. It's I suppose you just got to keep your hand in, got to keep playing the Van Halen stuff.
You got to keep doing that.
Take your foot off the gas and it goes away.
There's an amazing video that I saw on YouTube of Van Halen in 1978, and they're in a club and they're just killing it. And Eddie's playing a lot of these licks over different songs, that ended up being on the first record, and David Lee Roth is just killing it live. I mean, I don't know if he gets the credit now. I always thought he was an amazing singer.
I think he's one of those guys where you've just got to love him.
Yes.
So I think Van Halen enthusiasts must love him. And it's a strange community, though. I've seen a lot of the stuff that Wolfgang's had to deal with, and I can't understand how there's a culture around that band that makes people think that they can speak to him like that. I mean, after everything that he's contributed and been through, and how brilliant he is in his own right. I mean, of course he wants to do his own stuff, and it's like the whole thing of, but you should do your dad's licks and your dad's songs and everything. It's like, well, why?
It is. It is. I feel bad. I feel bad for him that he's, but he's such a talented kid, and but it's must be tough to have Eddie Van Halen as your dad, But Wolf is what a talented player he is, man, on everything. Just.
Do you think that when Wolfgang worked out one of his dad's things, his dad did that thing that your dad and my dad did? Just looked over at him and, how'd you work that
out? No, his dad was like, you're playing that wrong. No, try it like this. It's actually played like this. That would be the, if my dad could have told me, hey, that's, you're playing that chord wrong. Try it. It's actually this chord. That would have been helpful.
Yeah, to be able to, and then really satisfying for him as well, because then he'd be able to go to the railroad and say, I taught him everything he knows.
Exactly. But the, getting back to your original question about learning stuff, one of the most fun things I stopped doing these "What Makes a Song Great" breakdowns. People don't notice it. I mean, I haven't done one in a year and a half or so. I'd call them something different. I've kind of retired the series, but I never said that I retired it. Right. But I don't make those. I don't make those videos anymore, and I just make other videos. I make videos about songs. I just don't call it that anymore. To me, it's just the way that I broke them down, and I'd rather talk about music in different ways now and stuff. So
it's probably quite limiting as well.
It is limiting, yeah. It is limiting, and so, but I love making videos, and this has been nothing I expected it when I started my channel at 54 that I was gonna.
Yeah.
But do you love it? Is it kind of, you must love it.
I love it. It's amazing. It's just, I feel really lucky to be able to make videos on anything that I want, and it's just, I mean, I've gotten to interview all these people, and to sit with Sting and interview Sting is.
So how was Sting then? Because I can imagine, as I'm sure have you produced him before?
No.
So as a vocalist,
yeah,
do you feel like he would be one of those guys that's infinitely frustrating because that voice it's got to be fragile. It's definitely in the upper echelons of his ability range. That's one of the things that makes it really charming to listen to, is that he's on the edge of his ability, right? So you've got to imagine it's hit and miss.
I saw the Police play a couple times in the 80s, right at their peak, and Sting killed it live. And he I think he has, that he always had a pretty durable voice.
See, I've heard contrasting anecdotes from back in the day.
Uh-huh.
I remember people that I went to college with telling me that there was some appalling show that he did up in West Yorkshire, but maybe that was just an off night,
Well, everybody has their, everybody has an off night or has a cold or whatever, and they go on.
Present company accepted, I think. Right, guys?
But it is, back then, man, just Sting's melody writing and his phrasing, my gosh, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So is there a singer like a Sting, or like if the reanimated corpse of Frank Sinatra or something, is there anything that would pull you back?
Yeah, tons of them. Freddie Mercury, John Lennon, there's many.
So there's plenty that have passed on, but yes. Are there any living?
I like what I do. How's that? I like what I do.
Everyone loves what you do.
Well, I like.
I just wonder if there's, because I feel like the experience of recording vocals seems to have tainted your entire memory of being a producer, and I'm not having that. On behalf of the community of vocalists, there's got to be someone out there that you can just for an afternoon.
Justin, I would love to record you. That would be amazing. I think you're a phenomenal singer.
That wasn't what I was hinting at, but yeah, let's do that.
No, I would love to work with amazing singers, of course. Yeah, no, I would, but when I get to interview people, I interviewed Billy Corgan for an hour and 45 minutes yesterday, and it was absolutely fascinating asking him about all these songs that he wrote that I love.
Now, was he answering the questions from the sort of musicologist perspective, or was he talking about, like as a poet and where he was coming from lyrically?
Both. We talked about lyrics. We talked about, how he comes up with melodies. And it doesn't matter whether people can speak to, what they're doing technically, although Billy knows what a seventh is and a ninth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in just how they hear the shape, how their melody shapes, and how they hear phrases, how they come up with that stuff, and what their process is. I interviewed Maynard from Tool, and
that's an interesting guy.
Yes, and most people, he's brilliant. Most people that I've interviewed have exactly the same process, from Joni Mitchell to Sting, they all have the same process. They sing a wordless vocal, may have a couple words, or they might have a line, and they eventually will fill them in. They come up with a melody, they come up with the music, they come up with a melody.
Are they with is it that thing when you have a sort of mnemonic?
Yes.
Phraseology, and then you're just kind of like nom, nom, nom. And do they wait for the words to emerge from the ether, or do they then just sort of take the melody and don't impose anything sort of
I think that most of them have vowel sounds where and you probably do this too, where
no, I never do that.
You never do stuff like that? Okay.
No, I write the lyrics.
Do you really? You write the lyrics and you write the melody?
I have a sort of idea of meter, like in terms of the tempo and where the beat points are. And I suppose it's more like I basically write a rap and then I try and make it melodic.
Well, the people that do, I mean, the people that I know that I've talked to that do that, Elton John, obviously with Bernie Taupin, Bernie would give him lyrics and he would improvise the songs and he'd write them in 15 minutes typically, which is amazing to take some of these.
So which way around did you say that was? Bernie Taupin, and I always call him that affectionately. Bernie
He'd write the lyrics, he'd hand them to Elton, and Elton would improvise, and they would record on a 2-track.
And that works.
And he would improvise. He'd sit there with the lyrics on there, and that's how we do it. I talked to Elton. He was working in a studio here in Atlanta because he lived in Atlanta. He still has a place here, and he used to work at a studio that I won't name that I used to work at all the time. And I was making a record with a band that he really loved, and he came in, introduced himself on the first day of the recording, and I was in the control room. I didn't even see him come in, and he said, "When you guys are done, come on over and hang out in the A studio." I was like, "Okay." So we called over there. He's like, "Yeah, come on over." So he was there. Bernie Taupin was there. Some of the band guys were there, and Elton. We were talking about this, and Elton said that they would do 2 records a year. They'd write and record for 2 weeks, and then they tour for 6 months, and then do it again, which is unbelievable when you think about all these amazing records that he did.
Well, he was doing like 2 in the 70s. He's doing 2 a year at one point.
Yeah, and then they'd have these incredible Paul Buckmaster string arrangements, just genius stuff. But he still did the same thing with Bernie. Was there in the studio, and Elton showed us his work tape that he was working on with a song, and he just goes out there and improvises for like 15 minutes, and he's got the song, and it's unbelievable.
It's amazing. But Bernie Taupin also wrote lyrics for other people, didn't he? Like he wrote the lyric for "We Built This City on Rock and Roll," didn't he?
I think that's right. Yeah.
So I wonder how they arrived at that. I mean, if they did the same thing, like
probably the same thing. But then I look at Desmond Child. When Desmond writes out, he has a melody, and then he writes out little slashes where every syllable goes, right? And you can't vary the melody from the first verse to the second verse. You can't vary the number of syllables from the first verse to the second verse, right? It has to have the exact same number of syllables.
Now, I hate using this as a colloquialism, but it sounds a bit like an OCD thing. You know what I mean?
And that's probably just his process. I think everybody has their own process. And that is the thing, Justin, that I want to know about. When I interview Billy Corgan, or when I ask Chris Novoselic about when Kurt Cobain would bring in a song, what was that like? Would he say, "I've got a song, you have a demo"? Would he play it for you in the room on acoustic or on electric? He'd say, "No, we just start playing it." And he would sing it at the time. And I was like, okay. And then I might say, "Oh, what if we did this? Okay, let's try that." And that's how the Nirvana songs happen, So it's like it's what I love rock and roll, man. It's everybody has their own way of doing things. It's incredible.
It is amazing, isn't it? Our audience has a million question suggestions. I know I've taken up a lot of your time already, but should we go through a couple of those? Do you mind doing that?
Absolutely. I'm not doing anything right now.
Okay, cool. So one of the things they asked is what is the most, and because I always talk about on my channel, I'm always going on about the music trade and the way it's changed over the years. In the music trade has changed from being a product to a service. And it's left a lot of people discombobulated. If you spend enough time unemployed and trying to break through, and then the game completely changes, and then you're just watching the goalposts move. How do you make it in the music trade? People always ask that.
How do you make it?
How do you make it in the music trade? How does one make it? What piece of advice would you give?
Be good on TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah. That is actually profoundly great advice.
Yeah. I mean, look, in the old days, when I played in bands, you couldn't, if you were 30, you were always 29. If you were 35, you were 29. If you were, if you were 25, you were 21.
I've been 28 since 2003.
Exactly. So there was always a band. Our labels never wanted to sign people that were too old, and I would ask my A&R friends, they're like, well, because they don't know enough that they get you once you get to a certain age, you don't want to go on tour, you don't want to do the work that it took to get where you needed to get, and do all the free radio shows that you used to have to do. Back
You think it's that? So in the olden days, 28, for example, would be considered too old for the artist to be malleable and,
yeah, and want to do it. They wouldn't have girlfriends. They wouldn't be married. They wouldn't do whatever, boyfriends or whatever it is. They would, once you get to a certain age, you start having obligations or whatever, and it becomes more difficult for people as they get in their late 20s and early 30s, and labels didn't want to sign those people. They might want to have families or whatever, and they get responsibilities. It's easier with people that are...
So it's nothing to do with how good the music is.
Nothing to do with how good the music is, which is always ridiculous. And when my intern Rhett said, why don't you start a YouTube channel when I was 54, I've said this a lot of times, nobody's going to watch a white-haired guy on YouTube talk about music. Well, that's actually not true. Because I'm thinking like A&R guys were thinking.
You've been indoctrinated with that school of thought that once you get to 25, you're past it.
Right, like who's gonna watch some white-haired guy in his mid-50s talk about music on YouTube? Well, apparently a lot of people actually, and that goes to show you that it never, because labels never signed older people. They did actually. That's actually not true. So Sting was born in 51. They put out their first record in 1978, so he was 27. You can go back and look through the history of music and find people that got signed that probably lied about their age and got signed later.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, so it's and so you can find these things to disprove it. It's not the artist. It's always just the A&R people that wouldn't sign the people. When a great song is a great song, and I think that's always been the case, and people will get behind anybody, doesn't matter how old they are.
People will, people will. The populace.
That's right.
But it's interesting that the gatekeepers would only be interested in signing stuff where they're not old enough and self-actualized enough to be able to say no to things that are counterproductive to things like their mental health, their family conditions.
It's terrible, but that's the way it used to be. But it's not that way anymore.
It did used to be like that, and I think that that sort of speaks to the trauma of actually being famous. Like that you get pulled from pillar to post. You're told you have to do this. The rules are spoken upon you by the people at the label, and all of it is based on the fact that they can manipulate you in that way. And then you get spat out at the end of it when you do get to 28 and washed up, used, discarded, and traumatized.
Yeah. It's, I wouldn't not work. I hate using double negative there. I wouldn't not work with a band because they had someone that was older in it. Mm-hmm. Andy Summers was 35. I keep coming back to the Police. When the Police got signed, Andy Summers is 80. He was born in 1942, so he's 80 years old. No, he'll be 80 on December 31st. Now, why do I remember these things, Justin? I don't know, but I just remember. I have an incredibly good memory for rock trivia. But Andy Summers will be 80 on December 31st. 80 years old. So he was 35 when the first Police record came out. And that was really unusual back then in 1978 for somebody to be that age, So when you think about in 78, the Cars came out with their first record. Van Halen did. The Police did. I was in 10th grade. And but labels thought about that stuff. They did. Obviously, the people that signed, at IRS that signed the Police, that wasn't.
But I think maybe that philosophy of the young folk is
Maybe
I used to
MTV.
think it was a marketing strategy, or, just because based on what we were told, the demographic of the record buying audience is, but it's interesting that you suggest it's because of the way they can actually use the artist.
Well, this is literally from A&R people that told me this. This is why, this is how they, eventually you're in the business a long time.
You want people who've lived a bit and got some charisma, and you can't look at an 18-year-old boy and consider it sexy. You just can't. Okay,
so this is interesting. So I've thought, like, how could Mick Jagger write these incredible lyrics in his 20s? And I thought, like, well, and the Beatles and all these bands that wrote these, these really lyrics that you would never hear people write nowadays, for the most part. Well, because we live different lives. I mean, those guys are a generation older than me, but when I was 5 years old, I walked all around my town. I'm from a small town in upstate New York, but my parents never said to be in at any time or anything. You just had a house key. You came in whenever you wanted. And people my age never had did everything without supervision. So people grew up much faster because you always had to resolve your own conflicts, whether it's getting into fights or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there is none of that. That's nowadays, you would never let your 9-year-old go out trick-or-treating by themselves.
And that's not because you're conflict averse. Do you think it's because of...
It's a society thing.
A societal fear.
Yes. And so the maturity of someone and their the things that they could write about in their 20s. I mean, no one in the Beatles was 30 when they broke up. They broke up in 70, and when they broke up, Lennon and Ringo had not even turned 30 yet, and they had made 13 albums and written 176 songs. And you look at them and you think, oh, these guys are older than 30, or George Harrison was like 26 or something, 27. It's inconceivable. I think Robert Plant was, what was he, 30 when the Zeppelin broke up? I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's really hard to imagine, but they live different kind of lives than people live nowadays. But the other thing, though, Justin, is that 1981 MTV came out, and people that were in the 70s, there's many people, I should make a video on this, or we should make a video together, and the people that would not have made it based on how they look because they came out before MTV. Right. So looking good on video was important starting in 1981. So was much more important, let's just say.
And then you've got you've got people who have maintained a feverish audience because they've grown with them and refused to sort of... I'm thinking about people like Neil Diamond, Julio Iglesias, the crooners, These guys, they've matured at the same rate as their audience. They speak to them in exactly the same way. And people look despairingly on it as if like, what is that? It's like it's one of those things that you see in arenas in Germany and you don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like that. Why do people love that? And I think it's because it's authentic. These guys they're saying sexy stuff to a front row full of people that haven't heard that for a while, probably.
Yeah. I just saw Neil Diamond. He's got Parkinson's now, but he just did a thing on Broadway where he came up and sang Sweet Caroline with the audience, and they went crazy, and it was amazing. And he killed it. And Neil's got to be 80 something at this point. Yeah.
You'd think so. He always seemed to be a bit older.
Yeah.
Even back in the days. I loved Neil Diamond.
But my God, what a great songwriter. What a great singer.
Yeah. One of the best.
Yeah. So it's interesting, though. I think about the people, though, that could not have made it in the MTV.
Go on then, give me an example. Give me the prime example of somebody who you think is too ugly to make it in the 80s.
It may not be too ugly. They might not have to look. Think of anybody that's okay. Let's think about anyone that's losing their hair, let's say, or something like that. Right? That was like rock and roll.
Those are my favorites. I love those ones.
And those are people that labels wouldn't sign or whatever. That after 81,
Yeah. So go on. You have to please give me an example of somebody that you think from the 70s that wouldn't have made it in the 80s. It's a tough one, isn't it? You're going to choose somebody who's already passed away so as to not offend anyone.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to think of somebody that.
What about Leo Sayer, for example? Diminutive. No, but a great-looking guy actually.
Yeah, but see, people don't know how tall people are. So that's somebody that's small, because a lot of rock people are smaller than you think they are.
I might be wrong. He might not be small actually. He might be huge.
When I look at you, I think you're probably 6'1" or so. I'm just guessing.
More or less.
Right? Okay. So I mean, you can kind of tell, but some people, I'm surprised that they're. Billy Corgan is.
Oh, he's enormous. That guy's massive. Was he 6'4"?
Right. Yeah, about 6'4". Yeah. So I'm standing next to him in a picture yesterday, and people are like, either Billy Corgan's 7 feet tall or Rick's 5'2".
And you know what pisses me off? People like that, and then they wear heels. I mean, come on, guys.
Right. And it says on the internet, you can see things. Rick Beato 6'2". That came from a joke that Rhett Shull, who's one of my dear friends that got me to start, who was my intern. He's got a YouTube channel, and Rhett, on one video, somebody said, "Oh my God, Rick's either short or Rhett's tall." Then I said, Rhett's about 7 feet tall. Rhett's like 6'5", right? But it's and I was like, "Yeah, Rhett's 7 foot tall." And I said, "Rhett, you're 7 feet." And he's like, "Yeah." And so people are like, "Oh, Rick must be 6'2", but I'm not like 5'8". But it's, if you read on the internet, which many things are wrong, that I'm 6'2", which I am not 6'2", as you can see from being next to Billy Corgan yesterday.
Wow, Billy Corgan that guy is enormous though. It's crazy. I always wonder if he should get a Strat sort of made a bit bigger, or start playing a baritone guitar.
Or like when he was playing the acoustic guitar yesterday, he's got gigantic hands, and it was funny to see that. When you see people that, like Sting is a big guy. He's tall, and my wife came to the studio at where we did the interview in New York, and when I said, "Oh, I'm interviewing Sting," she's like, "I'm going to that." My wife, who's never watched one of my videos, and I love her dearly, and she says, I said, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah." Okay. So she comes up to it, and I'm out in the main room getting set up at the studio we're at, and Sting came into the control room. My wife said that she gasped because Sting looks like a movie star. And he's, and my wife's like, "Man, you got to get in way better shape." I'm like, "I'm sitting next to Sting. What do you expect? I mean, he's got, 0% body fat. He's 6'1". He's, and she's like, "Yeah, he's 70 years old. Come on." Like, I was like, "Well, I'm 60.
Do you think it's all the yoga?
Yeah. Yeah. And these, most of the people that I've interviewed are, I mean, this is amazing. I mean, I never talk about this stuff, but Mick Jagger, these guys are Mick Jagger's 80 years old. He's never, ever had a gut. These guys work out all the time.
I think his thing is running, isn't it? He does like an hour on the treadmill every day.
Yeah. But they've done it forever, for decades, for 50 years. Mm-hmm. And none of these, Robert Plant's always been in shape. Jimmy Page, they've always been thin. It's amazing that their whole lives. Keith Richards, all these people are thin.
But what would happen, do you think, if that didn't happen? What if Mick Jagger was rotund? If we lived in there's got to be a parallel universe somewhere where the Stones are enormous, and then that would be part of the comedy of it. They would be sort of, somebody would roll them on. Get it? It's the rolling. You know what I mean? It'd be brilliant.
They created the aesthetic for rock and roll. Look at the Beatles. When you watch Get Back, there's none of them have an ounce of fat on them. They're so thin.
Part of that's the diet, though. I mean,
and they also smoke cigarettes all the time, and
that too.
Yeah, and
not that there's anything good about that, kids.
No. So.
But the other thing is, I think there's a certain, because the Stones, they're all sort of diminutive, aren't they? They're all quite how can I put this? Not tall.
I didn't know that, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had a situation where the Darkness played with them in a German football stadium somewhere. We did a few shows with the Stones, and it was great. You know, awesome audience, really open-minded, and we just had a great time with them. And there was one day when they said, "Well, you can have your picture taken with the Stones, but it's going to be at 7 minutes past 3." They were super specific about it, right? So we got down there 10 minutes early. Keith was already there, completely hammered, just looking at us like. And then Charlie was there, and he was laughing at my tattoos and stuff, and we were having a good time. And then Mick bounded in. I was like, "Hello, boys, how you doing? All right, let's get the picture done." And then did the picture, and then bounded off again. It was just perfect. It's 7 minutes past done. But I was aware that when we stood there, we were like head and shoulders above them all, and it must have looked a bit like when Rick Beato had his picture taken with Billy Corgan, you know.
I'm getting shorter, you know. I've got my knee in a brace and everything, and I'm definitely shorter than I was, you know, even when I started my channel. No question about it. You hit 60, you know, you start, you know. But when I see somebody that's bigger than you imagine, when, you know, with Sting, and that's actually the exception to the rule, when people are bigger than you think they are, or something, or taller than you think they are. But you know, when I think of the Beatles, I mean, I don't know how tall they are, but I think that like John Lennon and McCartney are probably around 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot.
Yeah, I think they are. I met Paul McCartney momentarily just a few days ago, or a couple of months ago, and I tried to shake his hand, and I was kind of like, "Oh, brilliant!" And then I went to sort of lean on what I thought was like a lamp, but it was just one of those things where the filter paper they put around a lamp and there was nothing, and I just like fell into the lamp. It totally nearly ruined the moment, but
I love that.
Yeah, that's basically that's my career in a nutshell. You know, something amazing happens, closely followed by something really embarrassing. Yeah.
Oh man!
But just getting back to that Stones thing. Obviously, that picture never materialised with us being told them. But what I noticed is when you are a certain stature and a certain girth, let's say that, that your head appears bigger than the rest of your body. And those are what I consider to be the movie star proportions. You know, it's probably the same as Tom Cruise or someone like that. You know, big head, loads of features, expressive face, which you can do subtle stuff with, and then a great body that's tiny underneath it. People love that. They just love it. That's one of the secrets to the longevity of the Stones, probably, and one of the reasons why Mick Jagger's always in movies and does a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever see Free Jack? You know, Free Jack,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great movie when he's chasing Emilio Estevez around, and he looks as much the movie star as Estevez, who is the archetypal Hollywood heartthrob.
Absolutely. I loved it when you used to have people like Sting or Mick Jagger, whoever, that can get into movies, and they're great. And they're naturals. They can host SNL. They're as at home on screen as they are behind a microphone, you know, and that's kind of the old school rock star.
Yeah, but do you think that sort of charisma is what makes you an elite rock star? Or do you think the songs alone can carry that? Or do you need...
Well, you have to have the songs. To get to the elite thing, you have to have the hit song, the decades of hit songs. And you have to be that thing that people want to paint pictures of. I don't know if you can see my oh, you can see it when you get my film here. You'll be able to see my Mick Jagger painting, because I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan here. There's my Mick Jagger painting. So I love the Beatles. I love the Stones. Don't get me I can't pick between them. The people that I'm a Stones guy, I'm a Beatles guy. It's like, no, I'm both.
You can be both, yeah.
You can be both. I'm a Led Zeppelin guy. I'm a Black Sabbath guy.
You can be both.
That's right. That's right. So, but that's a really great question, Justin. All of that are great questions. The people though that actually can go on My thing is like, can you write hit songs and can you host SNL or or write hit songs and be in Dune or Brimstone and Treacle or whatever.
But the thing is, Dune, for all of its mainstream popularity, that's an art movie. It's a bit of a trudge, and it's challenging in the right way, but it's beautiful, and it's partly beautiful because Sting's in it,
right?
And he's enigmatic, and his charisma is evident, isn't it? Even when he's just standing still and being stoic, he's amazing.
But that's the like Free Jack. These are the things that make these people.
I like the way we're comparing Free Jack to Dune.
I didn't mean to compare Free Jack to Dune, though. That was not intentional there. But that is fascinating. I just I think about this stuff all the time.
Yeah,
it's really, really interesting. But getting back to the question that was asked about what you do nowadays to try and make it right. Well, maybe some of those same elements that made those people who they were work on TikTok and work on YouTube and work on Instagram. That somebody that's interesting to look at. Because these are the things that to me would make stars, like somebody that is interesting, not only has the talent, has the songs and music, but are interesting to look at, whether it's Steven Tyler or Robert Plant or, David Lee Roth or Eddie Van Halen, whoever it is. They were just,
I mean, I think it's, when you put it like that, it makes me think, should we be relieved that that's the barometer? How good you are, how good you perform on TikTok, or how your TikTok audience reacts to what you're doing. That's better, I think, than talent show format and free people at a desk telling you whether you have what it takes.
Yes, let the marketplace decide whether you have what it takes. Yeah. That's what I love about YouTube. I mean, TikTok, is I post on TikTok and stuff, but YouTube, because you can do long form content on YouTube, is the absolute best platform because it's not a social media platform. This is the difference. YouTube Shorts is, like TikTok, right? And Instagram's kind of a different thing, but YouTube long form videos like this, people on my channel like long form videos, and they like short form, videos 10 minutes or less. And the audience has their vote, and that's ultimately, you don't have the A&R guy. There is no middle person there, right? Mm-hmm. Saying, oh, I think this person has a hit. This is what the interesting thing, when I talk to Chris from Nirvana and Kim Thayil from Soundgarden, and I ask them the people that signed their bands, and it's never the people that take credit for it that I've met that took credit for signing them. They always mention completely different people, which are probably the lower A&R people that actually were the ones that found him and got him signed. And they're the only ones that they remember. They don't even remember who was head of A&R that took credit for it their whole career, So, but now you've gotten rid of all those, and the audience just votes. So it is better, I think.
It's funny because when it was kind of game show format, stardom, I suppose the person I'm thinking of specifically is obviously Harry Styles, because he's in movies. He was in the probably, I don't know what the numbers were like, but I reckon One Direction must have been competitive with the Beatles in terms of some sales, right? Or
oh yeah, huge, massive, yeah.
He's got his solo career, and he's a fashion icon and stuff. But all of that came from three people saying, "Oh yeah, you should do One Direction. Don't go home just yet. Go and join the One Direction."
Yeah.
And do you think that? I mean, it feels to me like the charisma that he has is a learned thing. Do you think it's something that's been, because at that point, that's when the A&Ring starts, I think, when you've got past the Simon Cowell moment, he'll put you in a room with some people that will say, right, wear this, do that, make friends with that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or am I just imagining that? I don't. Cause it's the pop world. I have no idea how it works really. I mean, you and I operate in rock and metal, so
it's a lot of the artists that get signed now, not Harry Styles, but a lot of the artists that get signed now are people that have become big on social media. I mean, that's just, and they've proven it there. If they can do it there, that's it, because that's where you have to be popular, is on social media. But maybe it's that, maybe you can sign, well, it doesn't matter, because once you've dispensed with the record labels, it's direct to the public. The record labels had the distribution and all that, and now none of that matters.
Record labels are these are desperate times for a lot of people in the music trade, but labels are really struggling. I think that's why 360 deals are really prevalent at the moment, and everybody wants to, they want to be able to take a bit of your live and a bit of your merch and everything, really, publishing. But I think that in the olden days, like an A&R person or somebody like the Scout or somebody would take a chance on a thing, and then there'd be an infrastructure in place at a record label that would develop the artist and help them to make records that would get them onto the next level of their career. And now there's nobody takes any chances. There's less money around, and they'll only look at you if you have certain social media statistics.
If you're already successful.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the thing. Basically, it's like the time the labels want to sign people is when they're already successful. Now you've already proven it, and then there's no reason for the people to really go with a major at this point, because it's not going to prevent them from getting on playlists or anything like that if they already have a following. And the deals that people have to do now, people that have made it on TikTok, labels, 3 years ago would be doing 80-20 deals with them, where the artist would get 20%, which historically is a lot of money. When I was in signed bands, you get a record deal, you get 13 points, 13%, and then you'd give 3 points to the producer, 1 point to the mixer. Okay, so you're really getting nine percentage points of. So 20 points is a lot. 20 percentage points is a lot. Now, but then the TikTokers would say, okay, well,
sorry, just to interrupt you. That everyone used to talk about points, didn't they? It's like that's that's the back end earning, isn't it? So the points is
yes,
after a sale.
As a producer, historically, a record, let's say, would be $10. Would be what you get your points from. So a producer gets 3 points. So they would get advanced $3,000 per track. If you did a 10-song record, you get $30,000 and 3 points. Record recoups, you start making, so 3 points would be $300,000 per million, because it'd be out of $10, so it'd be $10 million. So it's 3 points. So it'd be
paid over to the artist.
That's right. Yeah. So so that's how you do it. So you'd have to have, as a producer, to make $1 million, a record that sold over 3 million copies, which is a lot of records.
Okay, but if it's 80-20, it sold 3 million copies. Sorry, this is going to be difficult maths. Hang on.
So if it's 80, but nowadays you're not making that kind of money, because you're making streaming money.
I think what I was looking for was the startling figure that the label was making.
Oh yeah, they're making insane amounts, right? So
actual like a septillion.
So they'd be making 87% of the money.
Yeah. So if it makes 100 million for if it makes 200 million for an artist like, for example, Michael Jackson, that means there's a further 800 million that's been made by the label, right? Did I get that right?
No, if it makes 200 million, the percentage, the division it's 87. The label would make 87% of the 200 million, and the rest would be distributed between the artist, the producer, and the mixer.
174. They'd make 174 million then.
Okay, that's 87%. Is that? I mean, it's insane, right? It's an insane amount. But Michael Jackson didn't have those kind of deals, because back then you'd have these escalations. If you sold 1 million records, you'd get your points would go up, and if you sold 2 million, it would go up, and you'd have a graduated scale typically. So,
but I think in a way, like in the olden days, that kind of split would be, that's justifiable almost, isn't it? Because the
label took all the risk,
took a chance, and they advanced you some money, and they helped to develop you, and they supported you, protected you,
paid your tour support, everything. Yeah.
Tour support is almost a thing of the past. I mean, it definitely exists, but not in the same way. Not in the same way. The idea of a development deal is preposterous. I mean, why would you do that? They just sign things that have got millions and millions of followers and cash in.
That's right.
So what do you think the splits are now on a traditional record deal?
Okay, so then they went from 50-50, then they went from 80-20, 80% for the TikTokers that had huge followings, and 20% for the label. Nowadays, some of the TikTokers, they don't even do deals, because there's a direct pipeline from TikTok to Spotify. Some of the biggest TikTokers, there's this kid Jake that has a huge TikTok following, and he's got about 10 million monthly listeners on Spotify. And
wait a minute, when you said that, you're like, you suddenly went into a existential despair.
I'm actually looking. I'm gonna actually look this up right now.
Who's Jake then? What kind of music does he do?
Pop. He does videos with his mom. This is how he started out, where he pretends like his mom is a producer. I think it's JVKE. Yeah, JVKE. Okay, so he's got 20,900,000 monthly listeners. Sorry.
Yeah.
He has one song that has 244 million streams, and 215 million, 49 million, 101 million, 10 million. This is on Spotify. So you can imagine how many billions he probably has on TikTok, but he's making very little money from that. But these streams, that's a lot of money. It's millions of dollars he's making from this. 20 million monthly listeners. That's insane.
Are these short form songs almost that are sort of designed to fit within the?
That's right.
The TikTok attention span type thing. Is it like a minute long or something?
And the clips would be 1 minute long, and then these songs would be. These are 3 minute songs.
Okay, so they've elongated the songs at least, haven't they?
So they play the intro usually through the chorus. They would get through. Maybe you have to abridge the intro, but there's a little bit of acting that goes on with it too in his case. So he and his mom started doing things where his mom pretended to be the producer. And I know this because I watched a video that Vox or Wired or somebody made on the TikTok to Spotify connection, and how the streaming, they've studied 129 hit TikTok videos and saw which ones were successful on Spotify, and the people that were actually making real money over on Spotify, because there was no money on TikTok. It's unbelievable. Now, does he have a record deal? Let's see here. I don't know if he does. I don't see a label name here.
Wow.
I don't see anything that says he's on a label, but
straight out of TikTok.
So he probably
right from TikTok, right to Spotify, right to the bank account.
TikTok's almost an imprint in itself, with a built-in,
that's right.
promotional department that is the artist.
That's right.
Amazing.
So I think that's really what TikTok's probably going to do. That then they'll just be the record label then.
Yeah.
They already got the people.
Yeah.
And maybe they just control how many spins you get, and if you don't sign with them, it'll be go back to old school music business, right?
Yeah. Mad Max, Fury Road, whatever it's called. We're going back to that.
So there you go. That comes back to answering that question of what to do. Social media.
Develop Force 10 charisma. Be the triple threat where you can actually be in Free Jack or Dune.
Right.
Get on the treadmill for an hour every day.
Yeah.
and develop your TikTok game. These are the only things you can do for a career of longevity and success, really, isn't it?
And eat one meal a day. That's the other thing too. I swear these guys are, anytime I say, how these guys, stay so thin, they eat one meal a day. It's like a bowl of steam.
But that's intermittent fasting, isn't it? By definition, almost.
It is actually, yeah.
Madness.
Yeah.
So one of the questions here is like, I don't even know what this is referring to. What do you think about AI generated music and whether this will take over how popular music is conceived and produced? I don't understand that question, Rick, so feel free to ignore it.
It's computer, artificial intelligence.
So what is that? Is that when someone types in, do something a bit Stonesy, hit enter, then sit back for half an hour?
Yeah. Write lyrics in Mick Jagger style, or whatever. And then they have an AI voice that sings. That's the thing. The auto-tune has made it to where people wouldn't be able to tell the difference between an auto-tune voice and a computer-generated voice.
That is difficult for me, actually. I can't always hear the nuances and subtleties.
Yeah, so that's so is that possible? Of course, that would be believable that people would buy AI.
I feel like it's the sort of thing that, and I say this affectionately, a nerd, like a disruptive nerd, that's definitely not. I love nerds. I always wear the Revenge of a Nerds t-shirt. That's my favorite. Okay, let's say a computer expert, a disruptive computer expert, might try and pull the wool over the music trade's eyes by doing an AI generated avatar individual doing AI generated music, and it's all that. There's still somebody that can, but that's still an art concept in a way, isn't it? Because it's like you have to trigger that and you have to create the means to be able to do that. It's still art, isn't it?
I went to the library with my 9-year-old today, and we were talking about AI and this there's this new platform that's they put everything from the internet up till 2020 on this one platform, and you can say, I said, okay, what do you want? She said, okay, write an essay on what did it say? I can't, trying to remember here what we did. And it wrote an essay. Write an essay, write an introduction for Justin Hawkins, and then it would write an introduction on you based on everything that's been written about you on the internet. No, it really would. I could read it all. I could do it right now if I wasn't filming with my phone.
Please don't.
Then it would say, then if you said, write an introduction in Shakespeare, the style of Shakespeare, about Justin Hawkins. Okay.
And it would start jumbling the words up.
It would literally write in the style of Shakespeare. You just keep giving it more information, and it would do that. I'm going to do it right now, actually.
A Shakespearean Justin Hawkins introduction.
Yes. So this is, but this just to show you that this is Open AI is what it's called. Let's see, Open AI. Type it in. Open AI. Here we go. Artificial intelligence company. This was all the rage this week on YouTube and stuff, and on Twitter and everywhere. People were talking about this. A lot of YouTubers were doing this. Okay, so if I type in, let's see here. Oh, you're gonna love this, right? So let's see.
It's gonna save me a lot of time.
It's gonna save you a lot of time. People that do tech reviews and stuff were talking about this. I can't figure this out, but there's a way that you can do Shakespeare. You can do an introduction about you, a bio on you, and then you can do it in the style of Shakespeare, and it will do that with Shakespearean English.
But is it a written thing that it comes up with, or is it?
It comes up every time you say try again. It'll write a different one.
Ah, okay. But then you're obliged to read it. It's not like it's not a voice. It's not a.
No. This would be, but it can write code. It can do all these different things. It's It's amazing. You can write lyrics. So people were doing lyrics.
It'll write the lyrics so you don't have to. And then,
Right.
but will it take half the publishing though?
No.
Okay.
Probably if it has a record that you got the lyrics written from them, it would.
Do you know what though? If I created OpenAI, and then in order to use it, you had to log in, as I think you do.
Yeah.
Then you'd have a record of somebody going, I want a love song in the style of Journey, and then it does a generic Journey thing. It's got smoky bars. There's I don't know. The perfume's inexpensive, but it's not exactly the same as that one song. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so then a regurgitation of all things Journey comes out of this machine. But there's a record, a digital record of the moment you did that. So the person that created the AI,
But the person
Is
that
the
created
writer,
the
isn't it?
AI is taking everything that it learned from the internet, though.
so the internet at large is the right, but you can't. Because you're
So they
basically,
couldn't really
if you,
say-
what I'm saying is, like, if
that.
you write a song like that with AI, you type in, do this, the computer does it. So your only involvement is like a executive producer, because you've commanded somebody else to do something, and it comes back, and the remuneration should go to the person that designed the AI, or should it go to the person that typed in, do something a bit like that?
No.
It's just-
But my 9-year-old said that people they're people that she watches on YouTube Shorts are talking about people doing their term papers or their papers. My 9-year-olds tell me this. People will just cheat and do this. I said, Layla, you won't do this, will you? No, I won't do it. But it was funny though that she knew all about this, and then we actually were trying it out and stuff. And I put my name in, and I said write a biography on me, and had everything was wrong. So it said I was born in Georgia, which I'm born in New York, and
Well, I'm writing my biography, and all that's going to be wrong as well. Don't worry too much about that. But what they should do is, like, if I mean, somebody should invent a thing like, do you remember the what was it called? What was the thing where you had a pen on one end of the contraption and then a pen at the other end, and when you drew, the other end also, what was it
Did
called?
the same thing. I
Yeah,
don't know
so
if that's
so then
called-
you should have something in your hand, like an attachment here, and then the AI moves your hand, so that in a lesson, a supervised lesson.
I want to know what that thing is called. I was literally talking about that today, about the thing that holds one pen and holds another one. You write it and it writes the same thing twice. I was trying to explain this to someone, and I said, "Is there a name for that?" I couldn't think of a name for that.
There was a brand name for it. What would you call that though? How would you describe it?
I have no idea.
What would it be? It's something O-graph, wouldn't it? It'd be something O-graph.
You have two Sharpies. You can do two signatures on posters at the same time.
Exactly. Oh, that's the way.
Right?
Because
But
nobody
you have to have
accepts
it where it holds like 6 Sharpies.
the the multi
We need to invent
the
that.
octo signature graph or something it would be called, wouldn't it? But even that one,
Imagine putting in the 6 Sharpies, and then you got your one. You have to place it down right in the right spot, have everything next to each other, and then
Sign it.
I mean, I think I'd be thrilled if, like, if I went backstage to see my favourite band, I was like, oh, just want to meet the band and get an autograph, if that's all right. And then display my chest, and then just stand there with 5 other people as I do one, operate it remotely. Because I don't think that's a HR issue either. If you're just writing it here, and then everybody's chests get done at the same time, that's all right. You're all right with that, I think. No direct physical contact, so, What was it called? Come on, it was like...
I can't even believe that we're talking about the same subject that I literally talked about yesterday, and I was trying to think of the name. I was like, there's devices like this. I'm sure there are.
And there definitely was, and it looked a bit like Meccano, the way that it's...
It had a hinge on it and stuff, and they hold 2 pens, and you just do it.
Oh, but I mean, if you had to summarize what that device is called, like a
Multi-pen writing tool.
multi-pen writing tool, I'm typing that in. We're going to get this. I won't allow it to leave. Hang on. multi-pen writing tool. Copying. What the hell is it called?
I like that you actually will look this up here, Justin.
I know, someone's got to. Copying tool. Nearly. I can see something that looks. Because I'm doing an image search. I want to see the thing that's got. Because
I know there's ones that will do two things. You write it once and it will copy it once.
Yeah.
One of my brothers can write the same thing at the same time with each hand, with both hands.
Really?
He can write his first and last name at the same time, because he can write with his right and left hand, but he can write the same thing twice. So that would make doing autographs way faster.
Well, do you think that's related to the music gift that your family has? Because there was that video of your son doing the identifying the notes as you played, or identifying the chords, wasn't it?
Well, both, yeah.
That's amazing. Was that that's just staggering talent, isn't it?
So Dylan has perfect pitch, and then I taught him the theory. He kind of has this limitless perfect pitch where you can just hear. Doesn't matter where they are, what notes, how many there are, in what combinations. So he's well. I realized he had it when he was 3, and then I just taught him. Okay, if you hear C, E, and G together, it's C major. Okay, fine. G, B flat, D is G minor.
So how did he illustrate that when he was 3? What was he doing?
I was so I realized that I said we were in the car, and I was like, Dylan, sing Star Wars theme, and he sang it, and I was like, that's in the right key.
Really?
And then I said, sing the Superman theme, and he sang that, and that was in the right. And I checked it on my phone, it was in the right key, and I was like, hey Siri, play Superman by John Williams. And then I asked him the third song, and there's no way he could get 3 different songs in 3 different keys unless he had perfect pitch. So I turned the car around, came to the studio, and I hit the note B flat. What note is that? He said Star Wars. Well, Star Wars starts on a big B flat major chord. Oh. I hit the note G. He said Superman. It starts on the note G. Da, 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 da. Right? I'm a half step lower. I sang an F sharp. See, I said I was a half step low. See that?
Okay.
But it's yeah. So he sang it in the right key, and I was like, "There's no way he could sing it in the right key without him having perfect pitch." So I came down, I played the different notes, and then I said, "Okay, when you hear this Star Wars note, it's called B flat. Okay, when you hear the Superman note, it's called G, and this note's C, and this is C sharp, and this is A flat." And I taught him in 5 minutes. I taught him all 12 notes. That was it. He already knew what they were. As soon as he recognized them. So I knew he had perfect pitch, and I taught him names and notes, and he remembered them, and that was it.
Amazing.
So he didn't know what the notes were. I never said this note is a C. I never said anything like that to him. So it's kind of like learning to play the guitar and then learning what the names are later, right? You already know how to play, and it's like, oh, this is an E minor pentatonic. Oh, that's the Jimi Hendrix scale or whatever. That's the Hey Joe scale, or whatever. It's a dominant 7 sharp 9. That's the Hendrix chord. All these things that you.
Dominant 7 sharp 9. Hang on a second. I know I'm probably focusing on the wrong thing here, but the Hendrix chord, dominant 7. So how does it make? What makes it a dominant 7?
Well, it's dominant. It's just that's the 5 chord. That would be the 5 chord to give A minor or A major. It could be the 5 chord. So yeah, that's an E7 sharp 9.
This here.
Yeah. Your pinky, the note G is the sharp 9 because it's got G and G sharp in there.
Yeah, and there.
Yeah, that's the natural third, sharp 9, the 7, the flat 7, and the root. So it's root, third, flat 7, sharp 9.
Do you like this one?
Yeah, it's great.
There's a few different, like the ones, because all I hear is the 7, and then I get lost after that. So it could be or.
If you went, if you borrowed your pinky across on the top of that E7 sharp 9 chord.
Yeah.
Play that note. Do the E7 sharp 9.
Is that this?
And borrow your pinky. No, borrow your pinky across the high E string. No, play the sharp 9 chord again. Play that. Now borrow your pinky across.
Here.
There you go.
Oh.
That's sharp 9, sharp 5.
You can do that.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I like her.
Yes.
So that's E7, sharp 9, sharp 5. That pinky, the C there is a sharp 5 on the top.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What about when I do this? Because when you do that, what's that?
That would be out of the dominant diminished scale. That's a 13 flat 9 chord.
Dominant diminished. Enough about my sex life and marriage. Sorry. Wow.
Yeah, those chords. That's really like a polychord there, though, because that's really you've got you have E major, E flat. That's E major. So it's B flat minor over E major. This is E major, right? And this is B flat minor.
Yeah.
So it's B flat minor
Which
over
is-
E major.
I always like that the interval between a B flat and an E. It's just so evil, isn't it? It's the
the tritone.
tritone, is it?
Yeah.
They used to call amps tritones, didn't they? Which manufacturer made a tritone amp?
Well, Mesa Boogie made a triax amp. I don't know if there's a tritone amp, but Mesa Boogie definitely made a triax.
I'm going to have more luck Googling that. Hang on a second. Tritone amplifier. Oh,
Yeah, but that chord that you just played there, that B flat minor over E flat is, or over E major, B flat minor over E major. So,
Yeah.
that's the scale that goes over it.
oh. Yeah. What was it you said? On.
But, there's
If you just play that part of it, start with your pinky up here on the ninth fret.
yeah.
Play 4, 2, 1, and then 4, 3, 1 on the next string down. Then 4, 2, 1 on the G string. 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1. Yeah, and then 4, 3, 1 on the next string. And
Huh. Four was it? Was it four?
and then 4, 3, 1 on that one. Yes, exactly. And then you can move that around by minor thirds. Same notes. It's kind of like
It's just a,
yeah.
It's beautiful. Thanks for that. Wow. Dazzling. I love it. So tritone seems to be what is it? Guitar bass, guitar stroke bass amps. My eyes are terrible. I don't know about yours. I can't read anything anymore. Tube solid state.
I don't know that brand.
No, it's a brand, yeah.
I pretty much stick with Marshall, Mesa.
Maybe it's Supro actually.
Orange Park,
Vox.
What's your feeling on Matchless? They used to be a few because we've got a mutual friend, haven't we?
Okay,
No, Tim Pierce.
Tim's the best.
Yeah, he's a legend, and because I worked on a Meatloaf record with him, and he was the most accomplished, brilliant, and versatile guitar player I've ever seen. He's incredible, and he was just like around, being super nice. And when I was obliged to play things, and they wanted to try because I've got a particular taste for this in certain ways, they wanted to have me playing on it in places as well. But he would just lend me his unbelievably expensive guitar amp with no caveats, just like totally supportive and a brilliant guy to work with, and just in terms of like the things he played and also the way he was as an individual. I just loved working with him. He was great.
Tim is amazing. We've done so many videos together. He's one of my best friends, and I just crack up at his stories. He's so funny. Oh my God, it just.
Because he's been doing that stuff for a long time, hasn't he?
Yes, he's Tim's absolutely brilliant.
He's one of those guitar players who everybody in the world knows and loves his work without realizing it, I think.
Yeah.
You know, it's played on more or less everything, every big record.
Yeah, that's true. It's amazing.
I don't know why I was mentioning that, actually. Why did I say that?
Matchless amps.
Oh, matchless amps. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, if you had to say to somebody, right, here's the amp that does everything. Because I know that, you know, you and I, we like our Marshalls, and we like our Misas, we like our Voxes, we like all these things. But if you had to choose one that does it all, because I think a Strat is the most versatile guitar. If you can tell someone to buy one guitar, you say Strat, right?
Well, there's a couple different things. Like when I'm looking back here at my amps, like if I were to gig and I need something versatile, you have things that are versatile. If you have pedals, like Voxes work great with pedals, and are really versatile. But like my EVH head that I have an original one from like 2006, the EVH3. That has a great clean channel, great crunch channel, great high gain channel. So you could really do a lot with that particular amp. If I were to, and it has a foot switch with it and stuff. So
I do love the way you're not suggesting an emulator at this point.
Oh, I never think about stuff like that. No. I have 18 412 cabs right here in this room. So, yeah.
Is that because when you're standing in front of it, there's no substitute for it hitting you in the chest, or is it because you have like a philosophical disagreement with the idea of digitizing that which should never be digitized?
I have no problem with people using amp simulators, but I've got the real amps, so why do I need a simulator of an EVH when I can just plug one into a 71 Marshall cabinet or something, you know?
What's your feeling about like how that affects, you know, the live experience as well? Like if you're watching a band from the side of stage, 9 times out of 10 in modern metal and rock, you're not going to hear anything apart from the drums.
When I used to play live, I had 2 Marshall stacks behind me always. And that was, you know, I have Marshall stacks right here. I have multiple stacks against my wall, and I love, you know, if you can't move air, you can't move people. That was always kind of my
words to live by, my friend.
Words to live by, you know. That's my rock and roll thing. But, you know, plenty of people that I know that I'm friends with go up there and they and you know, my younger brother, John, he plays in a cover band, like a 70s rock cover band. And when he's playing a big stage, he'll use a real amp. If it's a gig where it's, you know, they're just playing a few songs, he'll use an emulator and just, you know, and you just use a cabinet as a monitor. So it's always about convenience and stuff. It's hard to move around them, you know, even a half stack or whatever, you know. It's hard to move around an AC30. They're just heavy.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
but that's why God invented guitar technicians and local crew.
That's right. That's right. You have a dual rectifier. No, is that a Mark V? What is that, Mark V?
It's a dual rectifier from about 2004, that one is.
It's a 3-channel, yeah. 3-channel dual rectifier, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I used to love the 2-channel ones when I first started playing with Mises.
I have a 2-channel dual rectifier that's actually modded, but it's I've had it for
squelchy
forever.
And bouncy about those old 2-channel ones. I've never played anything better, really. I just love it.
Yeah, it's I never let that amp go, and I just had a mod done with a couple of caps to take a little bit of the fizz off the top and stuff, and it just records incredibly well.
Yeah.
So heavy.
Yeah, that in those days, I think they were doing something really unique, and because I came into Misa a little bit late. I was borrowing like the 2-channel dual rectifiers for when we were doing recording stuff, and then by the time I kind of had my endorsement and everything, they'd stopped making those, and it was the free. Yeah. But the principle was I needed a dual rectifier, so I took the 3-channel one. I actually used to tune myself while singing. I'd be singing and tuning on a muted clean channel, and then use the other 2 for the stuff, you know.
Yeah, they're those old '80s ones. I think that's when they come out '80s or '90s. The '90s 2-channel, maybe mid '90s or so. 2-channel direct.
Well, I think they probably went to 3. Yeah, but 2000 it might have been right on the turn of the millennium.
Yeah, right around 2000 they came out with the triple channel dual rectifiers, which always confused me.
Yeah.
Dual rectifier with 3 channels, right? It's like, what?
I'm sure that's the Spinal Tap thing that they're doing. It must be.
So, but yeah, I'm an amp guy, but like I said, I've got all.
But I guess for me, the experience of playing is part of the exhilaration of standing in front of something you can scarcely control. You can't even carry the fucking thing most of the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it's the ordeal of it, and it's like the suffering getting that thing up the stairs, playing these function rooms above pubs and stuff, isn't it?
I want people leaning back in front of a Marshall stack and, their hair blown forward and stuff. That's what I want to see.
That's exactly it. That is the whole thing.
Without that, what do you got?
Because I think if you're doing stuff and then the amps are either underneath the stage or it's an emulator, the front row, they're going to be shuffled. Wherever you stand, you're going to get the same level of face time, the same kind of experience in the front. But when you have the actual loud amps on stage, you've got to pick your spot. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna if you want to be a fret watcher and you're prepared to stand in front of my brother when he's playing through his Marshall stack, it's like, well, then you're brave. You're a braver man than I.
Well, it used to bum me out when bands, kind of older bands would eventually adopt emulators, and I just would be, it just was not, when you don't see anything on stage, it's like, what is that? Yeah. Give me some amps.
Get some amps.
Get some amps. I like that you have a stack right there, Justin. I mean, that's amazing.
Nice to have a stack around, isn't it?
Got to.
I think they're like objets, even if you're not playing through them.
Absolutely.
Just to look at them. It's marvelous, isn't it? The carpentry.
Justin, you and I are 100% aligned on this.
I think so. Yeah. There's no debate to be had here. I think we're in agreement.
No. That's I'm 100% with you on that. I love the leopard. What would you call that?
I think it's a palomino hide. I'm ashamed of it now because I don't eat meat or I try and avoid cruelty to animals wherever possible. But I like to think that the horse or cow, whatever it was, died doing what it loved. Running away from a farmer screaming in terror, which is his favorite thing.
The Tolex, right?
And so whenever I play through that thing, I'm honoring the animal. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, is it actually is it actually the animal though, or is it just a made thing like ham? I mean, it's probably not a palomino thing.
Yeah,
so I was joking about that because they obviously wouldn't cover it with horsehide.
No, of course not. There's no way. That's madness. No. Anyway, man, thank you so much. 'Cause I think I've taken up loads of your time and you've been really gracious. And actually, my thing is normally a monologue, and this has actually just been a brilliant chat. And I really appreciate you for doing it. It was great.
It was my pleasure.
It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Have a great day.
You too, man. Take care.
See you later. Okay, guys. Well, that was it. Thanks a lot for watching. Once again, let me know what you thought. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all the usual stuff. I really appreciate you for sitting through this, and I hope it was as enjoyable to watch as it was to make it. And let me know if I should do more. Nice one, guys. Justin Hawkins rides again. Major. Again. Yes.